Hey everyone, Dr. Collins here. This video is actually a follow-up to a previous video that I made about how to conduct and interpret a 2x2 between subjects ANOVA using SPSS. In a recent update of SPSS, they changed the way that some of the options are displayed. So if you either are watching this video and I get to the options section where you're clicking on the different buttons and that doesn't look right, you might want to check out the other version of this video that I've linked to in the description on YouTube. Or if you looked at the previous video and those options didn't look right, then this is probably the video that has a similar version of SPSS as you are using. Either way, I'm going to be using SPSS 27 in this video. So in order to start out talking about how to conduct and interpret the output from a 2x2 between subjects ANOVA, let's start with an example. So in this example, we are going to have a study that is examining the effect of being a student or not being a student, and whether somebody has a job or not on levels of caffeine consumption. And we know that this is a 2x2 between subjects example, because in this example we have two different factors, or a factor again could be either a quasi-independent variable or a true independent variable. But those two different factors in this study would be whether you're a student or not, so that's one factor, and that would be a quasi-independent variable. And our second factor would be whether you have a job or not, which is also another quasi-independent variable. And we're looking at the effect of both of those factors on one outcome, one dependent variable, which would be the level of caffeine consumption in this example. Recall in a factorial design, if we have two different factors, we're going to look at actually three different hypothesis tests. The first one being the main effect of one factor. In this case, that would be the main effect of being a student or not. We're going to look at the main effect of the second factor. In this case, it would be the effect of having a job or not. And we're going to look at the interaction effect, so the combined effect of having a job or not and being a student or not. So anytime we're doing a factorial design or a factorial ANOVA, it's going to look at multiple different hypothesis tests within that one analysis. So let's discuss how to actually run this analysis using SPSS. Here's our SPSS data file, and we're going to start in the same place that we usually start to do our analysis, which is the Analyze drop-down menu. So when we click on that, we're next going to go to the option that says General Linear Model. Make sure you choose the right one. The one right below it looks very similar, but it is a very different option. So we want the one without the S, General Linear Model. And the option we're going to select from here would be the univariate option. That might sound a little bit confusing because univariate means just one, but really what that's referring to is that we have just one dependent variable. So we have one dependent variable in this example, which is the caffeine consumption. We're going to select that univariate option. So even though we have two factors, we only have one dependent variable. And so those two factors that we were looking at in this example was whether people were students or not, and also whether people had a job or not. So we're going to find those two factors within our variable list here. And usually what I do if we have our variable labels showing up here, it's sometimes harder to find what we're looking for. So I'll right-click in there and then select this option to display variable names. Makes it easier to find what you're looking for. So again, we're looking for the two factors being whether you're a student or not. So found that right here, move that over into the fixed factor box. So your factors are going to go in that fixed factor box. So we got student, and then we also have job. It doesn't really matter which order you put these factors in. I usually like to stick with the same order that they're mentioned in the example, just for consistency, but you can have really any order As long as you have all the factors that you're interested in that list, that's what you want to look for there. And then we'll find our dependent variable. In this example, we're using caffeine as our dependent variable. We'll go ahead and move that over into the dependent variable box. So here is where things might change a little bit depending on what version of SPSS you are using. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, this is version 27. And so it has a slightly different way of showing these different options over here on the right-hand side. The first thing I want to do is to ask SPSS to give me output of the plots or the graphs of our analysis. We're going to do this using the plots button here. So when we click on that, we'll get a pop-up window, and in that we want to put one of our factors as the horizontal axis and the other one we'll put as separate lines. It doesn't really matter which one you put in each of these two different boxes, just as long as one's in one and the other is in the other. And then after that, you're going to click the add button here. So it should show that you're having a plot of student times job. And then from here, we're going to click continue. Again, that's going to give us a graph of our data. That's really helpful, especially when looking at interactions. So next thing I want to do is select on this button that says EM means. If you don't have that button, you have a different version of SPSS, so check out my other video that I've linked in the description. But for this version of SPSS, we have the EM means button. And what we want to do with this button is select everything that's in this list here. So select all of those and just move them over into this display means for box. I also click compare main effects. I usually do this anytime I have a factorial design, regardless. Sometimes you need the information split up in these ways, sometimes you don't. But I like to have all the information there if I need it. So we'll select all those and then click continue from here. And then the last thing that you want to do is select this options button. On that options button, you can really select any of these things that you want. The ones that I usually do are at least going to be this first one, which is descriptive statistics, and the second one, which is estimates of effect size. So those are the two that I almost always do, but really you can ask the program to give you any of these other bits of output with your analysis. It's kind of up to you. And from there, we're going to click continue. And from here, we're set to do the analysis. So we could just select OK. When you get your output, you're going to get a whole bunch of different tables there in your output. The main ones I wanted to point out to you is this first box here. It shows you how many people are in each of your different combinations of groups. It also tells you the descriptive statistics, so the mean of each of those different combinations. For example, are you a student? Yes. And do you have a job? Yes. That's their average level of caffeine consumption for that group. We're going to go through all of this in more detail in some of the next videos. But another thing I wanted to point out here is this tests of between subjects effects table. That's going to be the main one that we're going to look at in terms of interpreting this analysis. So that's a really important table. And then last but not least, another very important thing from this output is going to be our profile plots here. So this is the graph of our data, of our analysis. So all of those are going to be really important in terms of interpreting our analysis. So I'm going to copy and paste all those things into a PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to walk through how to interpret all of this output together in the next video.